Okay, let's talk about the midterm. So if you look at the grade on your exam paper, you might see a lot of numbers. The biggest number is your original grade. One set of negative numbers is my first attempt at calculating your grade. And then I realized that I got the numbers wrong. And so there is a second set of negative numbers. And your original grade plus the two negative numbers is, your original grade minus the second set of negative numbers. 40 minus the second set of original. Sorry, my math is really bad. 40 minus both sets of negative numbers is your original grade. Then some of you have a green positive number. Those are the number of times that you answered a question in class correctly. And I added that to your grade. And so the big red number plus the green number is your recorded midterm grade. If your recorded midterm grade is over 40, I will move the extra points to your final exam. Okay, let's take a look at the exams. Each line has one mistake, not each sentence, each line. So the first line, the mistake is here. Look at the rest of this paragraph. Stuck is past tense. Attempted is past tense. Decided is past tense. So this is wrong. It should be past tense. Arrived. You can also say had arrived. Second line. I was a bit bored. Right? If it's in the passive tense, then it's describing the subject. That's what we want. If it's in the active tense, passive voice, if it's in the active voice, then it's describing the next thing, but there is no next thing. So this should be bored. Playing is correct. It's I was bored and playing with, right? Because this active voice, you now have an object playing with the magnets. Some of you thought the mistake was stuck. Stuck is stick, stuck, stuck. So this is correct. Line 3. The mistake is here. Might means maybe, right? Not sure. But this sentence is describing something that actually happened. This is sure. So the might is wrong. The fastest way to fix this is just to delete the might. He put. You can also say he had put. If you said he may put, that is also wrong because may is also not sure. If you say he would put, that is also wrong because would is the future from the past, but nothing about this is related to the future. So only put or had put. Line 4. We are in the past, so you should not have a present perfect. In Chinese, 整段在过去，你不应该有现在完成。So again, the fastest way to fix this is to just kill the has. He removed. I will also take he had removed. Although that's not a good answer. It works, but the best answer is he removed. Next line. This is the mistake. After is it's an adverb, but it's an adverb describing this entire clause. It's not describing this one word. Here you need a noun, right? After lunch. Lunch is a noun. So after struggling, you need a gerund, 动名词. One very creative answer I saw was after he struggled. I will also accept that. That is good grammar. Line 6. The solution was to put. The solution was, and then you need a noun. Put is a verb. So we need to change put to a noun. You can say putting or you can say to put. Both are accepted, but to put is better because at this point, he has not yet tried the solution. He's looking forward to trying the solution. He is expecting that this will work, but he hasn't actually started yet. So the best answer is to put, but putting is also accepted. Line 7, again, we are in the past. This should be I was pulling. I will also accept as I pulled. Line 8, this is not a word. Lose, lost, lost. L-O-S-T. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but for some reason didn't catch it. Line 9, again, we are in the past. It should not be will run. I will take the best answer is ran. I also accepted had run. I did not accept would run because again, nothing about this is related to the future, whether it is simple future or would means looking at the future from the past. This is not related to the future. Would run is not accepted. Finally, line 10. I'm sure the doctors were perfectly happy to help him. You don't have to make the doctors. You can let the doctors, or you can have the doctors. Or you can say to ask the doctors to take the magnets out. Okay, questions? So a couple of you did not actually circle the part that you thought was wrong. And if you corrected it correctly in the bottom, then that's fine, because of course that means that you did catch the mistake. But there are certain test-taking advantages to doing both parts. Some of you, if you look closely at your exam, you might think that you did not circle the right part, but I gave you points anyway. And that is because I'm using a very generous, very loose definition of circle. I'm not going to tell you what that definition is to make the final exam, to keep the final exam fair, but rest assured that there are advantages to circling and then correcting, not just correcting. Okay, so that's the midterm. Anything? Great. So yeah, we're done with verbs. Nothing in the final exam will be related to verbs. It will be related to everything else. So some of you might remember that on Moodle, I also have this thing, the document in Chinese about learning tips for learning English. Recently, I updated the file. I added a table of contents. So if you're interested in any of this stuff and you can read Chinese, you might be interested in taking a look at this file. Yeah, okay. Today we're going to talk about basic ideas about nouns. Countable, uncountable, and the definite article. Let's begin with uncountable because those are easiest. In English, every noun is either countable or uncountable. As long as you know the rules, you will always be able to see whether it should be countable or not. Uncountable nouns are always singular, and they come in two flavors. The first flavor is a kind of material. So, for example, the house is made of wood. Wood is the material for the house. It is therefore uncountable, and it is always singular. That is from Canada. Right? So is singular. It's a material. When I say material, I also include food material. The beef at this restaurant is excellent. Beef is a food material, right? Food made from cows. So it is also singular, uncountable. The other kind of uncountable noun is if you stop and try to count it, it's going to take you too much time. It doesn't make sense to try to count this thing. So, for example, hair. The hair on my head feels clean after my shower. Right? So, hair, uncountable, singular, feels. I mean, if you want to count hair, you can, but like, why? Why would you spend your life counting hair? You have a limited time on this earth. Don't waste it like that. So hair is uncountable. Things like water. Uh, Actually, not hot water. Warm water is good for you. If you want to, you can like take a dropper, a tube, and like count drops of water. But again, why would you do that unless you have a special need to do that? So water is uncountable, singular. So far, so good? Okay. Now, here's the exception, because it's English grammar, there is always an exception. You can count uncountable nouns if you are counting categories. The bank handles various kinds of money is actually not clear. What do you mean kinds of money? Do you mean like different kinds of bills or like money from different sources? We don't know what it's talking about. But if you say monies, then we know we're talking about different currencies. New Taiwan dollar, US dollar, the euro, different kinds of monies. We can even talk about some of the words we have been using. Uh, Bath is a place in England where the water apparently has healing powers. So when I say the waters in Bath, I don't mean individual drops of water. I mean like there are various pools of water or like hot springs in the city of Bath. And each place, every place is good for your health. Or you can say like The waters around Taiwan can be dangerous for swimmers. When I say waters, I'm not talking about simply the water. I'm saying different places in the water around Taiwan. And so you can count categories or groupings of uncountable things. And then some words are sometimes countable, sometimes uncountable, depending on the meaning that you want. So we were talking about hair, right? Can't count hair like that. But you can say, I found 3 cat hairs on my purse this morning. So when you say hair uncountable, the image that you have is different from when you say hairs countable, right? Hairs is like individual strands of hair, whereas uncountable hair is just like a mass of hair, a group of hair. Similarly, we can there's a different meaning for wood if you count it. Wood is a material, but you can also say the woods are dark and deep. And in this case, the word woods means forest. Some words are conventionally uncountable, which means you think they're countable, but in English, we don't count them. The most common one is clothes or clothing. Clothing is the uncountable one. Clothing is always singular. So the clothing in this store is nice, right? Is singular. Clothes is always plural, as you can see from the ending. Now, why is clothing and clothes not countable? Or like, why is there no singular word for like one clothes or one clothing? Because the singular cloth is a kind of fabric, 一种布料. So in English, when you say clothes, you're actually talking about the different areas of fabric that put together make up the piece of clothing. Um, Same thing for furniture. Furniture is also not countable. Why is furniture not countable? Yeah, it's always singular, right? So the hotel furniture looks expensive, singular, uncountable. Why? Because it comes from the verb to furnish. To furnish means to fill with furniture. I know the definition is circular, but that's what it means. So furniture is the thing that you use, or the kind of thing that you use to furnish a place. So the previous sentence you can say as the hotel is furnished luxuriously. So if you want to count an uncountable noun, you have to add a count word. For example, a piece of furniture, an article of clothing. This should be very familiar if your native language is Chinese, because every noun in Chinese has to have a count word. What other words? Oh, some kind of unit, right? So a glass of water, um, uh, a tuft of hair, money, good. Um, a bag full of money, if you're very lucky. right? So you have to have some kind of count word. And if you don't know the count word and you're talking, it's not formal writing, you're just trying to communicate, then the universal count word. If you forget, you can always use this one. A thing. A thing of water is just a thing you use to hold water. A thing of hair is a thing you use to hold hair, right? So if you forget, you can just say thing. Okay, that's uncountable nouns. Questions? Like some count words can get really fun. So like sometimes you have a count word even for countable nouns. So like you have like a pack of dogs, right? If you want to describe a group of dogs. And then you have a murder of crows. Ouya. In fact, there is a book called The Dictionary of English Count Words that has like a whole book full of different count words, if you are interested. Okay, moving on to countable nouns. The name is countable, which means you can count them. But the rule is you have to count them. Every time a countable noun appears, it is either singular or plural. You have to tell the reader. So my rule of thumb for countable nouns, to remind you, you have to count them. You have to add a word either in front or you have to add something behind. So for example, you can say like a car, right? Then you have added the word a in front. You can say cars. You have added the s in the back for a plural. You can say my car. You can say that car. You can say the car. As long as there is a word in front or something in the back, that's fine. But you cannot simply just throw out the word car. So as you know, if the noun begins with a consonant sound, you use a. If it begins with a vowel sound, you use un, right? So animal. But I said sound, not letter. So for example, union, 工会, a or un? A, because the sound is union. It's a Y sound. Y is a consonant. Okay. Now for the exciting, annoying part. Plurals. How do you form plurals of countable nouns? As you know, the most common plurals are either s or es, right? If the word ends with an s, class, then you add es. Every other kind of word, you would just add an s, right? Cars. The pronunciation is different. Also, I need another word here. Hang on. Oh, cats. Okay, great. So the pronunciation for these three are slightly different. If your word ends with a letter that does not use your voice, right? You're not using your vocal cords. This is called an unvoiced sound, and you will learn more about this next year in Introduction to Linguistics, probably the hardest course you will take in our department, and everybody has to take it. Then the S is also unvoiced. So it's cat, cats. But if your last sound is voiced, R, right? You're using your voice. Then the S is also voiced. So this is cars. And then because ES, the E is always voiced, as long as it's ES, you are always using your voice. Classes. Okay, so those are the so-called regular plurals. And then English has a long list of irregular plurals because English is a greedy bastard who devours different words from different languages. So, for example, we have analysis is analyses. SIS becomes SES. This is from, I believe it's from Greek. Notice also the pronunciation. It's not es, it's ease, analyses. Crisis, crises. Then we have antenna, antennae. Thank you. NON. So phenomenon, phenomena. I should separate these. Criteria, you know this word, right? Criteria, it means standard. It's a plural. The singular is criterion. Then you have things like bacteria. You know this word? It's what makes you get sick. This is also a plural. The singular is bacterium. Similarly, media, you know this word, right? Media, the press. It's also plural. Medium. A medium is the thing you use to send a message. So the media are all the different ways to send a message. So the news. Another common one is, this is fun, data. Used to be plural, the singular is datum. But today people also use data as a singular noun, and that's fine. But if you read, for example, something British or something older, they will often use like the data are. That's not a mistake. That's an older understanding of the word. Then you have things like stigma, or that's not a bad, that's a bad one. Schema, schemata. Um, automaton, automata. Like stigma, kind of. There are two different definitions. Stigma, stigmata, this is a religious meaning. Sorry, but like, you know, Jesus Christ was nailed to the cross, right? So he had nails like puncturing through his hands and his feet. So the holes in his hands and feet are called, each one is called a stigma. And the plural for that, the holes, are stigmata. And this is important because some people who say that they have experienced a miracle, their hands or feet will, they say, suddenly start bleeding as if they also had been nailed to something. It's a signal of a miracle. And those are called stigmata. But if you're talking about a social stigma, like something that many people will discriminate against for, then it's just a regular plural, social stigmas. Like, oh, I don't want to strengthen any stereotypes, but like attributes that people often get bullied for. And that gives us the cheat code for all of these irregular plurals, which is, if you're not sure, just add S and people will understand you. It may not be right, but it will work. Unless you're taking like a grammar exam. Oh, one more. And this is actually Latin, but in English we use the Latin word. Alumnus, alumni. These are people who have graduated from a school. 校友. And because it's Latin, there are male and female versions. The female version is alumna, alumni. I didn't spell that right. And also because Latin is the language of ancient Rome, and ancient Rome was a patriarchy, if you need to count men and women who graduated from this school, you would use the male plural alumni. What are some other fun things about English plurals? How about this one? You know that Mr. means Mr., right? If I read Mr. dot, it means Mr. How do I say Misters, plural, more than one man? Misters, Holmes and Watson, right? If I wanted to introduce you to both of them. We take this abbreviation from the French, Monsieur. Misters. I know that doesn't look like the French word either. It's weird. It's just what we do. And then speaking of weird ways to give people titles, how do you introduce a married couple in a formal setting? Like we might say Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? But what if you want to be really, really formal? You would say, and I apologize to all the women in the audience, Mr. and Mrs. John Smith. You would use the man's name for both people. Of course, this sounds very sexist, so we don't do it often. It's only for like the very, very, very formal occasions, like you're meeting the president or something. Okay, back to plurals. Sometimes we have a word that is a compound word made up of a noun and another kind of word. For example, passerby. A passerby is someone who passes by. So the noun part is passer, and the by just tells us what kind of passer. The plural for this is to add the s after the noun part. Passers-by. Passers-by. Same thing. Father-in-law means this person is your father only according to the law. In other words, he is the father of the person you have married. In Chinese, like 岳父. It looks like a noun plus two other kinds of words, right? So the plural is fathers-in-law. Okay, time for an exception. If you are talking about the entire half of your family, so the part of your family that you only have because you are married to somebody, that entire part of your family, it is called the in-laws. Then the S adds to the very end. Sometimes you will have a job title that looks like this. For example, the Attorney General. This is the person who leads the Ministry of Legal Affairs, 法务部长. Attorney means lawyer. General is an adjective, it's not a noun. So you make this plural by adding the S to the end of the noun part. Attorneys General. Same thing for Secretary General. This is the leader of an organization with a secretariat, 秘书长. The most common one is the Secretary General of the United Nations, 联合国秘书长. Same thing. You add the plural to the end of the noun part. Secretary General, Secretaries General, and change the Y to IES. Okay, I think I have one more thing to say. No, I have two more things to say about this. First one is nouns that end in F. Hoof, the foot of a horse. Hooves. Exception. Roof. The top of a building. Roofs. Weird exception. Staff. If you mean a group of people, first of all, staff in this case is usually singular. It's a group of people, but it is a group. So the staff is. If you are talking about this, then the plural is staffs. But if you mean staff like a long stick, like Gandalf has in The Lord of the Rings, a really long stick, then the plural is staves. Okay, let's think. Am I missing any weird plurals that you might encounter? Oh, some words, the singular and the plural are the same. Sheep, sheep. One sheep, five sheep. Same word. Uh, but some words are really weird about this rule. For example, fish. One fish, five fish, but you can also say 10 fishes, especially if you're counting kinds of fish. So actually, I think this fits with uncountable. Fish, let's say fish is uncountable. That fits better. So okay, fish is really weird. So first of all, if you're talking about the animal, no, they are countable. See, English is really annoying. Fish is countable, singular, plural looks the same. Fish, fish. But you also have the word fishes to mean types of fish. And then you also can use the word fish for the kind of food. And if you're talking about fish to eat, then it is a food material and it belongs with beef. The fish is great here. Okay, one last thing. We said that uncountable nouns can be countable if you are counting categories. The same rule applies to countable nouns in reverse. If you are talking about categories, you might turn a countable noun into uncountable. I go to school by car. Car is countable, but here you are not talking about a car or two cars. You are talking about a kind of transportation. This is a category. So here, car is uncountable. Are you student or teacher? If someone walks into this room and can't tell who's who, they might ask you, what category of person are you? Are you the category of student or are you the category of teacher? So when you use countable nouns as categories, they can also be uncountable, or they then become uncountable. Questions about countable, uncountable nouns? Okay, let's take a short break. When we come back, we are going to talk about the word the most powerful word in the English language. Before we get into a few more words about plurals. So I mentioned that the words stigmata and stigmas have different meanings. The words media and mediums also have different meanings. Media, as we said, is like the news, different ways of conveying information. Mediums are people who say that they can talk to ghosts, 灵媒. So a medium and plural mediums is referring to these kinds of people. And then for countable nouns, we should talk about the conventionally plural nouns. These are nouns that are basically only plural. There are no singular or almost no singular versions. So as I was saying earlier, clothes is habitually plural. My clothes are all new. And if you want to use singular, you have to say a piece of clothing. Others like scissors. So there's no good reason why we don't have a singular for scissors. But if you look at the Latin, I'm sure you all know Latin very well. This is the root for cut. So, for example, we have words like incision, which is a deliberate cut, or decision, which is a cut away. How do you make a decision? You have two options. You cut away one of them. So scissors are tools that you use to cut with, and they so like when you talk about a thing to cut with, you're talking about basically a knife. A pair of scissors has two knives, two blades, so they are always plural. Another one is pants. Are also always plural, or you might say a good pair of jeans, a kind of pants. Well, I guess pair makes it singular, right? A pair of scissors is a bad birthday gift. Scissors are a bad birthday gift. Yeah, so pants, jeans, any kind of pant, khakis, hachiku, shorts, jorts, if you know what jorts are. Jorts are jean shorts. Anyway, any kind of pants, they're all plural. Why? Because the original form of this word was pantaloon. A pantaloon is the leg part of a pair of pants. So when you say pants, you are actually talking about two leg parts of your pants. Let's see, what other? Oh, and then one last one. This is really fun. The police are. The police is always plural. The police just means the cops, right? And cops is, of course, plural. Okay, yeah, now we're finally done with plurals, I think. I'll tell you if I think of anything else. The word the makes English a very special language. If you talk to some of our classmates who speak other languages, they probably do not have a similar word that does exactly the same thing. The word the points to something that already exists within a context. When you talk, you are always telling a story. You are always describing something. You are always explaining something. From the infinite possibilities of language, you are selecting certain things to talk about. That is a context, 脉络. When you use the word the, you are talking about something that everybody already knows is inside that context. You are talking about something that we are already paying attention to. So the most common uses are something that is unique within the context. For example, the teacher in a classroom. If each class is taught by only one teacher, you don't have to say which teacher. If you look inside a classroom, that's your context, you only have one teacher. So it is the teacher that everybody knows you're talking about. Same for like the highest, the fastest, the slowest, etc. If there is only one, then if you talk about the highest, fastest roller coaster, 云霄飞车, then the word roller coaster gives us the context for what you're talking about. And if you say the, that means that you are talking about the one that everybody can recognize or know. You may not know which roller coaster is the highest or the fastest, but you know there is only one. It is unique within the context. And that can help us explain why a pair of sentences might look like this. A car appeared in my bedroom. The car was very old. Why does the first sentence begin with a car, but the second sentence says the car? Because the first sentence creates the context. Out of all the possible locations, we are in my bedroom. And I have told you there is a car in my bedroom. Therefore, the second sentence, within the context of my bedroom, there is only one car. So we say the car. Okay, if you are following so far, raise your hand. 目前有听懂举个手. Okay, almost there. Now 我用中文讲. I'll use Chinese to explain this one more time. 当你有一个既定的语言脉络，在这个脉络之中，唯一且大家认知到的那个东西，你就要用的。Does that help? Kind of abstract, right? But that's the general idea. The thing about the is it's not related to countable, uncountable, singular, plural. You can add the to anything. In fact, I already did. The hair on my head is uncountable, but I said the because I only have one head. So when I say the hair on my head, it is unique within this context. Uncountable nouns that suddenly become countable, you can use the. Countable nouns, you obviously can use the, right? The bank. You can use the for anything, singulars, plurals, uncountables. So this tells us if you see the and then a noun, that does not tell you if it is countable or uncountable. You need to look at other clues or think about the situation. Okay, now that we know how the works, we can look at some interesting uses of the word the. If you open up a book and the first sentence says, The young child was walking alone down the dark path. This is the first sentence of the story. Why do we have the word the? What is the context? Yes, thank you. So previously we have said that the word the is used because we know the context. Here the word the is used to create the context. What is the context? The context is within this story, there is a young child and there is a dark path. And the word the is focusing our attention like a movie camera. So you may have heard of story titles like the girl on the train, or like the woman in red. For some reason, these titles always feature women. What girl? What train? What woman? The story itself will tell you. It is defining the context. It wants us to focus on these people and these locations. Okay, we've talked about like highest and fastest, and of course you can also add best, right? Different people will have different ideas, but each person will only have one best roller coaster. But you might sometimes see this, the better option. So this implies that there are several options, and one of them is better than all of the others. So the one option that is better than the others, within this context, it is a unique option. We don't say the best option because you are only looking at certain options. You are not looking at all the possible options. So for example, the better roller coaster in this city is on the east side, not the west side. Okay. So you have two options. In this case, two roller coasters, one on the east, one uh, on the west. And you're saying of these two, within this context, you are making a choice. Of these two, one of them is better. It is unique within this context of comparison. So the better roller coaster. And from this, we get phrases like the higher you fly, the further you fall. Something like that. You are, it's a developing comparison, right? This is why we have the word the here, because it's based on the same logic as this one. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the. Questions? Okay. I thought of some more stuff about plurals. Again, I'm so sorry. There's just a lot of stuff about plurals. Um, some words you can only use to count uncountable nouns. Some you can only use to count countable. So for example, uh, the countable versions are uh, many and few. The uncountable versions of these words are much and little. Few people, but little attention or little information, right? Many pets, but little information. And then for countable, you can say some but for uncountable, you cannot. So you have to say a lot of, or like lots of. But in fact, for countable, you can also say a lot of. A lot of is universal. You can use it for anything. So like the one that has no counterpart in uncountable is some. That's not right, is that? You can use some. I'm so sorry. Some money, that works. Yeah, so like the major ones are many few, many few versus much little. Okay, I'm really done this time. Questions? Okay, if you don't have questions, let's go to the practice. Your new handout, your brand new handout. So this is just asking you which nouns are countable, which ones are not countable. And if they are countable, please change the noun to a plural. First 9 questions, I'll give you 2 minutes.杨志允，杨志允在吗？ No. 刘振凡。Number 2. Which nouns can be plural? 复数。Seats. Good. Airplane seats, plural. Good job. Number 2, 复数数. Or sorry, number 3. Students. Any more? Experiments. Any more? Are you sure? Good. Classes. You, in terms of grammar, you can say in their class, like they're all in one class. But here it says, whenever possible, change it. And it is possible to have classes. So plural classes. Good. Number 4. 何炳轩. 何炳轩? No. 左炳宏. 左炳宏. Ray? Ray still here? Yes, number 4, please. Which words can be plural? pests. Okay. Any more? Germs. Germs. Good. Any more? Good. House flies. Flies. Good. Number 5. Tao Kai. Number 5, please. Which words can be plural? Computers. Any more? Operators. Operators. Good.找不到你名字。奇怪，突然在点名单上找不到凯莉名字。Where did you go? Oh, okay, I found you. Okay. Number